Oh, hello. How are you? I was just watching a rocket video. Fascinating, don't you think? Come with me. We have always seen rocket launch that have reached other planets or satellites that today move around the Earth to give us a very broad general scientific use. This takes us away from the idea of being able to something similar on our own, but actually with a little dedication, it isn't so difficult with something like this. We can make a rocket like this, made of bottles and plastic, fly over 100 meters.
The first law of Newton's, a corpse will remain, and the rest are movements with speed constant in a straight line, which don't act on external force. When choose change in the moment of course, this has level of resistance so called inertia. The second law of Newton's determines that this force is applied to the body. It accelerates. To accelerate a corpse in the same direction as the applied force and inversely proportional to the mass of moving body. If the mass of the body is constant, the formula expressing Newton's second law is force equals mass x accelerated. The third law of Newton postulates that the force that drives a body generates a force just as gas in the opposite direction. It's a if sparks force or another body. The second body produces a force on the first with equal magnitude and the opposite direction.
Well, science can also become a great entertainment. There are hundreds of home experiments that help us understand key concepts of physics and chemistry, which are ideal for teaching. Well, the experiment we will develop this time is about pressurized water rockets. The materials to do this experiment are very easy to find and it isn't complicated to make, but it could be a little stressful experience. But we can't deny that it offers us a funny time and many learnings, and in this case, Newton's laws. Basically, a water rocket is a type of rocket that is driven by pressure exerted by a compressor with a pressure of 6 psi, which travels through the 3/4 tubes until it gets to the water rocket. Obviously, we have to make sure that the base doesn't leak, so the rocket can make a better flight. Fine, the pressure that reaches the rocket that exists within the base can be called force 1, and the force that is generated by the water inside the rocket to the first floor can be called force 2. In this case, as Newton's first law says, every body maintains its state of motion unless a new interaction appears. Well, in this case, this law is being fulfilled because the equilibrium of a body is being given, and that means that the sum of both forces give us results 0, and this implies the balance of moment. Knowing this, the rocket, to get out of that state of motion, we must apply another force called force 3 to break that balance of motion and give a dynamic to the rocket. This force 3 can be applied by the compressor, and we can add a force 4 that's going to pull the clamp so that all that pressure contained in the rocket makes effect. Thanks to this force, the rocket can take off and perform a type of motion with acceleration. Given the sum of the four forces, a dynamic is obtained as a result, and this process is called Newton's second law. Knowing this, the rocket, to get out of that state of motion, we must apply another force called force 3 to break that balance of motion and give a dynamic to the rocket. This force 3 can be applied by the compressor, and we can add a force 4 that's going to pull the clamp so that all that pressure contained in the rocket makes effect. Thanks to this force, the rocket can take off and perform a type of motion with acceleration. Given the sum of the four forces, a dynamic is obtained as a result, and this process is called Newton's second law.
Well, first of all, the rocket manufacturing, we use a 1.5 liter bottle, and we cut the tip of another bottle of the same capacity. We put the tip together with the other full bottle, and then we have the body of the rocket. After that, we have to make the wings, which from the plastic you can see it on a screen. Now, our base, we gather all the materials needs to arm the base. To start putting it together, the first thing we did was put Teflon in all the 20 and 40 centimeters pipe. Since we have to seal it so there is no water or the pressure leaker. Then we put the stopcock, and the physical valve isn't fitted with Teflon. The valve is wet, so apply the pressure that the rocket needs to be launched. In our case, we make a nut so that it's hard on the rocket and the cells. The function of this cells is to withstand a certain amount of time the pressure exerted on the rocket. The load set it and fly out the side. A place is shown in the space, and it is mostly clear so that the rocket can fly, speak, and without all obstacles. If so, get the place, put the base on the ground, and hold it with a stake to the same ground. Then the rocket that we make will fill it 3/4 of water and put it in the base in the 40 centimeter pipe. To this same trip before float the rocket with full detergent so it is easier to lift off base with full detergent so it is easier. Then it place the handle and attach it to the seals and the rocket to release more pressure when pressure is applied. After that, the only need to apply pressure is with a compressor through the bicycle, valve and root and stick it in front of the water rocket.
the type of movement that an object can have, we can highlight two types: the uniform rectilinear movement, uniform varied rectilinear motion. The URM is present as movement that is constantly maintained and straight, while the UVLM raises the concept of acceleration. In addition, it is classified in decelerate and accelerate UV. In the case of the launch, the movement of the rocket is in UVLM since it has two accelerations: the one that exerts gravity and the one that gives the compressor. So you can apply to this experience the formulas of UVLM and get the results of maximum height and the speed of certain points of flight.
In conclusion, we can say that science can become a great entertainment. In our experiment, we discovered what a pressurized water rocket is, and basically a water rocket is a type of rocket made of bottles which is driven by the air pressure attributed by a compressor, causing it the take off. Finally, in the experience, you can see the Newton's laws presents, in which are described the forces that affect and interact in the movement of the body.
As you could see, we don't necessarily have to experience a launch through a screen, but they can recreate it with our own hands. See you next time.